Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. Welcome, Greg Soulje. Good to have you back with us here today.
Nice to be right back with you there, Sarah, here from a warmer climate for now, but heading back northward later on today. Been able to testify that there are no hurricanes and no tropical storms in my particular part of the world so far.
But some really good key lime pie, I think you were telling me ahead of time.
Yes.
So
There's
you
no
can guess where
possible.
Greg is based on that clue. Where is Greg?
That's right. I'll give you another piece of clue here. I'll just say the last name, Hemingway. And folks
There
can
you
figure that
go.
out.
That's a
There
good
you
clue, too. Well, why don't you go ahead and fill us in on what's going on around the country here? I know we got some things to talk about. Nothing real significant, but getting some rain up here in the homeland up north here, Greg. And but will that last and all of that? So I'm going to put up the slides and let you go from here.
All right, here on a happy Friday, 1 week from today, the 4th of July holiday weekend, man. The summertime season, the growing season is just flying on by. Lickety split. Yeah, I saw about 1.25 inches, not far from in our part of the world, up in northern Lake County from those storms of yesterday. Those were just a couple of clusters, and so hopefully the lawn is looking good. Probably long, but I prefer that than burned out and dried out. And that is anything but we've seen in a fair amount of the core belt so far. Most soil moisture is in the adequate, some areas surplus, others a little bit dry, but we'll make amends with that going forward here over the next several days. And if you are in even keeled mode with soil moisture, and even despite some lack of significant moisture in some of the grounds, we're making up for it in the western and northwestern corn belt. Nationally, 4% of the corn is silking already. 8% of the beans are blooming already. That is ahead, significantly so, of the 5-year averages. Testimony to, well, if you've had okay rain and it has been even keeled, and your planting dates in particular were a little on the earlier side, middle and late ranges probably not quite where we're at right now, then you're in good shape with crop growth and development out there. And there's some cooling going on through the Lakes region, north of the Canadian border, out towards Sioux Lookout and Sault Ste. Marie. They are only in the 40s and 50s, and there was a cold rain coming down in some of those spring grain areas this morning. Testimony that there's still some cool air left, and it is the cool air that generates a rain this time of the late spring and actually summertime season. Speaking of summertime, temperatures are returning back to the 90-degree mark as far north as South Dakota. They've had, and the Dakotas at large, a fair amount of rain. Some of that has been heavy along that border area east of the mid-Red River Valley of the north the past few days. And while the rains have been significant, where we really almost have eradicated the dryness and drought in Kansas, we've done it in Oklahoma, have made significant inroads through Texas. Only 19% of that U.S. winter wheat has been harvested, well behind the 5-year average, when it ought to be about 28 to 30%. Should be able in the coming days to make amends, and probably outside of the monsoon thunderstorms that are going over the southwest, they're going to turn into the plains and head into parts of the Corn Belt. Next week, there should be some decent advance across some of those central plain states areas with winter wheat harvest operations in mind. Southern states, the heat, boy, it was tough earlier in the week at 95 to 98, all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia. We had triple-digit readings in the Carolinas, all the way into the northeast of New England. That high is kind of what we call gotten contaminated with tropical moisture because of cooling in that high up aloft. And so that gives the clouds the ability to grow in some areas and generate scattered showers and thunderstorms. Hence what we've seen in parts of the eastern Corn Belt the past couple of days. And some of the activity as well, welling up over sections of the southeastern United States. Otherwise, 95-degree weather still holding on, but that's not unusual for the time of year into the Carolinas. Gusty winds, low afternoon humidity fuels into position, and the wildfire threat is going on into the northern part of the Intermountain West. I think that will be an increasing story going forward for the next probably 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to ramp up in a hurry the monsoon season. Now, that typically starts with more lightning, dry-based thunderstorms, especially in that Great Basin, northern and central Rockies areas. So keep an eye on that. But there will be the propensity for some heavy downpours, flash flooding, recurring severe weather into the eastern fringes of Arizona, more so to Mexico, West Texas, and points northward. And those tropical feeds of moisture are going to get caught up in the southern branch of the jet. We will ultimately move some of that Pacific moisture again, some of that monsoon moisture into parts of the plains. And there's still rain in the forecast, even into the western Corn Belt going forward for next week and probably beyond. This is the June 24th drought monitor from earlier on this week on Thursday, and still big issues. And it's just going to take a hurricane or a couple of remnants to come up through the Rio Grande to get improvement, or maybe an El Nino winter season, which is not on the maps and charts here, to get any big improvement through the Rio Grande valleys of Texas and in through New Mexico, apart from if the rains are more manageable, they don't come down all at once with the monsoon set up in Arizona, New Mexico, and points on northward. Some improvement noted across parts of the western Corn Belt areas of Iowa. Still some work to do in Nebraska, South Dakota, the Upper Missouri Valley portions of North Dakota, the Red River Valley of the North have seen improvements, and same with Wisconsin and Northern Illinois. I think we'll see a little better reflection of the recent rains on the drought monitor for next week in some of those southern Great Lakes areas, Corn Belt. But we're moving along, we're limping along in relatively good shape. There's the Tuesday afternoon maps and charts. Pretty benign, diffuse, scattered, random hit and miss, roll of dice chances for some scattered showers and thunderstorms, and the weakening of that high up aloft. Temperatures have cooled, put some tropical or Gulf moisture in it, get the clouds to grow, cools the atmosphere around it as well. And in the afternoon, evening hours, you're able to come up with this kind of stuff with probably better coverages for parts of Indiana, Ohio, and the lower lakes region, and much needed into parts of Michigan. I can testify to these scattered showers and thunderstorms down in that peninsula area of Florida. Maybe I just gave the answer away there, and down into the Keys as well. But by tonight, later on tonight, the front will have passed maybe northern Illinois, briefly turning the winds off Lake Michigan into southern Wisconsin. The scattered showers and thunderstorms continue over the eastern and southern Corn Belt. Oh, the big block of red area. And again, boy, parts of the Nebraska Panhandle, eastern Wyoming. Seen some social media video of just the kitchen window getting knocked out because of not wind, but hail balls coming on down and just shattering rooftops, barn tops, taking the shingles off the barns. I'm sure there's been some livestock losses out in some of these areas of Nebraska and the high plains of the Dakotas and Montana. You just blow that cool, dry air into these thunderstorms. The rain shafts go up and down, up and down. You cool that atmospheric column, you make ice, and here comes the hail on top of you, whether you like it or not. Tomorrow morning, the same boundary which will have come through the Midwest and the Western Corn Belt in that red half circle area. That's a warm front. That's 90 to 95 degree air pumped right back into the plains and Western Corn Belt areas. A couple of showers, thunderstorms, Ozarks and Oklahoma, the regions of central and eastern Oklahoma. Gulf Coast is a little wet and stormy. Nice to see the rains back in through at least a seasonal basis parts of Florida. And in the Everglades area, we've had some big storms down there the past few days. Ohio Valley into the northeast of New England. A pretty good swath of probably some rougher weather tomorrow afternoon into the Twin Cities, Rochester, Austin, Albert Lee, back to Mankato, and across the river into and around Brookings and eastern parts of South Dakota. That could get roughed up, scattered afternoon stuff over the Cotton Belt, and just beginning to see the early vestiges of afternoon thunderstorm activity into West Texas, cotton, livestock country, and the desert Southwest. Then by Sunday, we're into the heat and humidity, briefly, but tempered by clouds, tempered by morning, and more likely afternoon showers and thunderstorms over the northern and western Corn Belt. Then they will make tracks into the eastern sections during Sunday afternoon and into Monday. Gulf Coast, the usual afternoon sea breeze off the Gulf, and scattered showers and thunderstorms continue there. We're going to build that hot ridge back over the western states. So except for the southwest part of the country, the Divine Country and points east from there, we're going to cap off the atmosphere too dry, too hot, and anything that does get going, and it's probably going to be over the Sierra, is going to be more lightning based. Hence, I think the fire situations are going to return in some areas of the west going forward over the next couple of weeks. Next 2 days, moisture in the Ozarks, northern and eastern Great Lakes region, and the upper Midwest, and some pretty healthy downpours across the Gulf Coast. Severe weather this afternoon across the Dakotas, parts of Nebraska, Red River Valley of the North, and then the thumb area of Michigan, maybe as far south as the Maumee Valley in northwest Ohio. That is a big ag producing area too. By tomorrow afternoon, severe weather potential running from over the Sioux Empire region up to and around maybe Watertown and points east from there towards the Twins and into northwest Wisconsin. Tropics for now are quiet. If you can see far to the right, that's the African coast. And outside of a couple of little blips, and that's right at the equator. And if you get stuff that forms off the equator, you don't have what we call vorticity, Earth's vorticity, the spin, if you will, to start spinning these things up. There's nothing going on. And I don't think there's anything going to be going on here, probably for about the time through July and even into early to middle part of August. After that, we'll see what happens. But the El Nino pattern continues on from what we see. And until we get the tropics going in the Atlantic, the beat goes on with timely rain, timely heat, no issues. And again, more and more bearish on this widespread Armageddon type drought that continues to get talked about. Drier to drought-ish, if you will, with time later this summer. Sure, but that might actually help out some of these early planted varieties that are already going in through some of their crop reproductive stages. That little X down there, the Yucatan Peninsula, is going to work into the Bay of Campeche. That's that U-shaped area of water in the southwestern Gulf up through the southern sections of Texas and up to the Rio Grande, probably just going to really increase the monsoon setup over the southwestern states. There's the fire potential for now over Idaho and Wyoming later on this afternoon. So looking ahead, that hot high, as we talked about, is getting contaminated with scattered showers, thunderstorms, cooler temperatures at the surface, cooler up aloft, easier to make rain. As that ridge begins to collapse, it will retrograde, reestablish itself in the western states. A couple of reasons why, but the main thing, I think we've got a thing coming out of the eastern Pacific next week, late next week, maybe again moving into Mexico, another system that may, again, drive significant moisture in through and east of the divide into the high plains and maybe turn it into the Corn Belt with time. And when this is talk of probably the next 2 or 3 weeks into at least the first half of the month of July. Other than that, there's no significant cooling. We may see a trend back to more seasonal temperatures over the middle part of the country. That's 80s, middle 80s to low 90s, nights in the upper 50s to mostly 60s. That's still a very good accumulation and racking up of growing degree day units on the base 60, I think, or 65 side of corn. I probably should know that. Anyway, scattered showers, thunderstorms in the southwestern states. The next 7 days, you can see through western parts of New Mexico, the southwest, Oklahoma, and again, the showers and thunder across areas of the deep south, picking up in scope coverage and intensity. And those are still some wet areas that had a rough go of it with cotton planting. And it's nice to see some organized rains from Florida's Space Coast down to the Everglades, with just the convergence, we think, of probably the sea breeze off the Atlantic and the Gulf getting together. They line up right over central Florida. And when that happens, those things don't move when you get 2 or 3 inches of rain in an hour time. So, but a lot of that gets run off. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can see that trough moving through the middle part of the country. The jet stream in from the west and northwest, and it's air off the Rockies, off the northern and central plains, not out of Canada. The warmth in the upper air is still there, not as capped off, not as hot. So it's just a return to more seasonal temperatures. And that southern line that you see on the 500 millibar chart at 25,000 feet, if you were to trace it from Mexico to New Mexico, up through Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, central and southern Illinois, south and east of there, that's a weak ridge. Gulf moisture, not super strong like we had here earlier in the week. Disturbances, very little minor ones, probably induced by thunderstorms, will come out of Old Mexico, and they'll light up the radars, the monsoon setup, and then they just continue a little mosey track into the plains across the Corn Belt. You get into the southern or underside of the jet, which is the polar jet, the main rain-producing jet out of Montana, the upper Great Lakes region. You're off to these races with these blobs of late night, early to mid-morning. They fade away to nothing quickly. They refire in a couple of spots in the afternoon, then they do it all over again. Plains, western Corn Belt, dying out over eastern sections, and that'll be the story for at least additional rainfall prospects and no dryness per se, no drought per se, going forward next week and probably beyond. There are the surface maps and charts, which get pretty murky this time of the year, late June, July, August. There's a lot going on. Hard to pick out unless you're getting into a cold wave, strong cold front, tropical remnant of a low. In any event, you can see high pressure building into the plains, the Corn Belt areas between Tuesday, Wednesday, that little dashed red line. There's another warm front, and that'll be pushing into the western and northern Corn Belt, Midwest corn and bean complex between Thursday and the 4th of July, Friday, into the holiday weekend. And sometimes along that arc that we saw in the jet stream, the upper air pattern, and then you get a warm front coming into it, and low-level winds are kind of converging a little bit. That's the way you make these clusters, these blobs of scattered showers and thunderstorms. So the rain-making ingredients are still there, not a kept atmosphere. And I think that's the way July goes here for a good part, not all of it, but a good part of the Corn Belt. We will continue with still some timely rains in the Central Plains, more so the spring grain areas. So we'll keep an eye on maybe some heat-related dryness issues coming back into Oklahoma and Texas with time. It does not take long to get that to return. Upper air charts the next 6 to 10 days. It's modeled stuff, but has the right idea. Out of California, southwestern states, that last little line, the little U-shape there, and the southern edge of the jet stream pattern, Gulf moisture, a little disturbance, a warm front kind of stuck in that arced ridge, if we call it. And there's every reason to, at least by late June or July standards, to make some semblance of rainfall in decent, albeit scattered coverages going forward into the first half of July. Temperatures ease down. There's a hot ridge there. There's some of it in the southeastern part of the country. Nice channeling effect. This is attributed to cool off in the southwest because of cloud cover down there. And dew points that will still make the 90s down there in the southwest. Just imagine that. Dew points in the 60s and low 70s like we had here in the Midwest. And it's easy to make thunderstorm activity in the heat of the day that stay into the late of the day, into the evening, and the overnight hours in that particular part of the country. And next 6 to 10 days focused in the divide, the southwest, but still some decent opportunities. Pretty blasé, broad brush, but that's the way the summertime goes in late June and July. You got to look at the smaller features. What these maps and charts don't handle, they do have to handle the bigger features. And if you can track the bigger features, you can easily come up with the smaller ones when we get closer to the event. And no big dry time at all across the country, the southwestern states too. And that's it. That's it. It's a par for the course, typical, Sarah, normal, late June, early to mid-July setup around here. Still kind of bearish about, I think the dry spell, the droughty thing that gets going is going to be a benefit for some, worsening for others. But if you were able to plant early and you get into that drier spell and you're mature, that's crop moisture reduction, that's dry down values, that's early harvest, right? Am I missing something?
That's seeing the positive side of things, Greg. Yeah. Way to go. Yeah.
So that's what we're thinking. We're not completely, out of the woods yet, but I think it will be all have to do with what goes in the Atlantic. And like we've talked about since late last winter, early spring, from northwest to southeast, worst to getting okay, pretty good, and maybe not so great with too much of a good thing as you go northwest to southeast across the Corn Belt. And again, we're in good shape over the central and southern plains with moisture. Some of those spring grain areas a little bit iffy. Same with the western and northwestern Corn Belt. But there should be significant, at least timely rains going forward in that part of the country. So if you can just space them out and water them down on the livestock side, we're okay.
Well, and the really good thing is we're going to be back twice a week. Once a month with the longer term forecast to keep you updated. So you're in the loop on what's ahead. Excuse me, on what's ahead. So
and that TV show we do as well this weekend. Agribusiness that helps, and radio. So there's no escaping us at all.
We're there for you. So all right. Until next week. Thank you, Greg. We will see you then. And thank you all for tuning in as well.